On this week's episode of the Nerf Report, pricing for the Xbox Rogue Ally handhelds leaked online this week. A gaming YouTuber is facing jail time over reviews of emulators. GameStop auctions off the stapler that was in the middle of the Switch 2 Staplegate. We obviously have to talk about this week's game of the week, Donkey Kong Bananza. All of this and a whole bunch of nonsense on this week's episode of the Nerf Report.
Are you listening?
Strangers from distant lands and friends of old, you've been summoned to another episode of the Nerf Report. Thank you again for joining us on episode 32. Yeah, we are back in the studio, back in the garage, here talking about what we all love most, video games. A big shout out to everybody watching this over on YouTube, watching it over on TikTok. And obviously, we got to give a shout out to our audio files over on Apple and Spotify podcasts, who each and every week put their earbuds in, listen to this show, and allow my voice to take a little Death Stranding 2 journey down your ear canals so I can tickle your eardrums with all of the gaming news that you love to hear about. My name is Bryant. I am thrilled that you are joining us this week to talk about all the gaming news that's coming out this week. And of course, as we do every single week, we got to talk about the video games that released this week for the week of July 15th. Not 15th. It's the 14th. Anyway, this show sucks. I don't know why you guys watch it or even listen to it, but I appreciate you do. For the week of July 14th, here are the games that released. Obviously, Monday, July 14th, nothing came out, so I guess we could technically say the week did start on July 15th. On Tuesday, July 15th, we had games like Stronghold Crusaders Definitive Edition. Obviously, this is the remaster of the classic RTS video game. This is available for PC right now. Ready or Not, a super dope tactical first-person shooter game launched this week for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. And on any other week, this probably would have been our game of the week. We would have dove straight headfirst into this game and talked about it because I think it looks dope. Personally, I can't wait for things to kind of settle down later this year so I can dive into this and kind of give you guys my thoughts. Also, on the 15th, we had a game called Eric's Home, The Stolen Dream. This is a stealth adventure game that's now available for PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. Eden Zero launched, which is another action RPG that's for PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. Dungeons and Dragons, The Neverwinter Nights 2 Enhanced Edition. Obviously, everybody knows what that game is. It's an RPG. It's on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and the Nintendo Switch. And then Destiny 2, The Edge of Fate. That is the latest expansion for the Destiny 2 franchise that's available right now for PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. And man, as a Destiny fan, I am really interested in this, but also as a dad, I don't have the time to jump into this game. So please, if you're playing Destiny 2, Edge of the Fate, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I'm very interested to see how this expands the story. Where does it go? Maybe you're playing it right now. Let me know what you're doing down below in the comment section, as always. Moving on to Wednesday, July 16th, nothing came out. So obviously, we jump into Thursday, July 17th, when a little game called The Wandering Village, which is a city builder simulation game, came out for PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and the Nintendo Switch. RoboCop Rogue City got an expansion called Unfinished Business. I used to love RoboCop as a kid, man. Like back in the day, I remember I was staying home from school sick. First time I ever saw it, my mom was watching it while folding laundry. I walked in like young, maybe 10, 12-year-old Bryant. I was like, what's this? She's like, it's RoboCop. I'm like, hold up. There's a movie about a cop who's a Why am I just now seeing this? Anyway, the expansion is now available. Another game launching on Thursday was Hunter x Hunter N vs. Impact. Obviously, I'm butchering that title, but I know nothing about fighting games. That is admittedly my weakest spot as a gamer, but that's now available for PC, PlayStation, and the Nintendo Switch. Golden Tee Arcade Classics is now available. Obviously, we all know what this game is, right? We've all been in a pub, we've been in a bar, we've been into some seedy type of nightclub where in the corner there's a golf game. It's got a little trackball where you're literally just lining up the tee and hitting it, driving it down, getting your putts in. That's a great game, but now we have Golden Tee Arcade Classics, which is a collection of all of those games for console. It's now available for PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and the Nintendo Switch. That's not all. Fretless, a brand new RPG launched for PC. Drill Core, a simulation roguelike dropped for PC, and it's leaving early access, so congratulations to them that the game is finally getting into full opportunity. And then, of course, our game of the week, Donkey Kong Bananza. It's an action-adventure game. It looks absolutely sick. I'm so excited to dive into this a little more later in the show, but Donkey Kong Bananza is now available for the Nintendo Switch 2. Closing out Thursday, a little game called Bridge Constructor Studio. Makes sense. You build bridges, you get a river right in front of you, and you're like, how do you build a bridge across? How can we make sure that cars can stand it? The game is straightforward, and you can play it right now for PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and the Nintendo Switch. And then closing out our week on Friday, July 18th, a week that might go down as the busiest week in the world of gaming as far as game releases go. We had Shadow Labyrinth, a brand new action-adventure game for PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and the Nintendo Switch 1 and Nintendo Switch 2. Shadow Labyrinth is available right now. Now, of course, these are the games that launched this week. Please sound off in the comment section. Let me know what you played this week. Did you pick up any of those games? Are you playing them currently? I am always interested to hear what you're playing, where you're playing, and how you're doing it. Thank you guys again for your feedback. We greatly appreciate that. Now, moving on from the games that launched this week. There was a lot of them. It was like a total of 15. It is time to talk about the granddaddy of them all, the game that deserves all the attention of this week. It is time for the Game of the Week. That's right, folks. This week we are swinging into action with the OG, one of the original kings of Nintendo. We are talking about Nintendo's latest masterpiece, Donkey Kong Bananza, and I just want to get this out on the plate. This is the game that should have launched with the Nintendo Switch 2. Because when you're looking at the landscape and you're like, why do I need to buy a console? This game does it for me. Like, I understand launch Mario Kart. Mario Kart's a very popular game. Everybody loves playing Mario Kart, and people play it for decades upon end. But Donkey Kong Bananza should have been the Switch 2 launch title, because every single time I'm seeing gameplay footage, every single time I'm seeing the trailer, every single time I'm seeing someone talk about this game, the feeling I get is, damn, I need to buy this console. I need to pick up this game. And it makes sense, because you take the team who made Mario Odyssey, one of the greatest games of the Nintendo Switch generation, and you tell them, do what you did with Mario, but do it with a different IP. Let's say Donkey Kong. And then you get a game like Bananza. It's got a super fun gameplay loop. You got fully destructible levels, giant boss fights, and of course it's causing a lot of big questions like, does this belong in the Game of the Year conversation? So let's kick off our conversation about Bananza by talking about the review scores. Right now, Donkey Kong Bananza is sitting on Metacritic with a 90, and that's a really, really, really good score. And then when you dive into the actual press reviews, we got things like Eurogamer giving it a 9 out of 10. Digital Trends gave Donkey Kong Bananza a 4.5 out of 5. Nintendo gave it a 97 out of 100. Nintendo Insider gave Donkey Kong Bananza a 10 out of 10. And IGN, who doesn't do it very often, gave Donkey Kong Bananza a 10 out of 10. And Inverse gave it a 10 out of 10. And I have to say, it seems warranted, because something that makes Donkey Kong Bananza stand out incredibly well is obviously the destructible environments. And look, this is not just a gimmick. This is the core of the gameplay. Almost everything in the levels you go to, the walls, the floors, the platforms, even the background set pieces, all can be destroyed. And it's not just about like looking cool. This completely changes how you explore the level. For example, you drop into a cave, you smash the floor, and you discover an entire underground labyrinth of tunnels that have hidden bananas, collectibles, or even enemies. And then you punch through another wall, and then you find like a bonus room that the developer put there to hide it. It's everything that you love about video games is here. Hidden secrets. And I'm sure that we are going to be 10 years from now, and someone's going to be posting a video on Reddit, and it's going to be like, oh, look at this secret thing I found in Donkey Kong Bananza, a game that's 10 years old. That is what we can expect from this game. In fact, I read that Nintendo wanted to make sure that when you play this game, obviously there's a point A to point B to finish the level, but with Donkey Kong being able to destroy the entire environment, they wanted to say, like, yes, you can do A to B, but if you're more of an A to Z or an A to F, we want you to play the way that you enjoy. There is no wrong or right way to play this game, and I think when you do that and you accomplish something that's as cool as this, it's spectacular. And visually speaking, this game looks absolutely stunning. I mean, Donkey Kong Bananza looks like an animated movie that's coming to life. And even IGN, I wrote it down, they quoted in saying, This is a groundbreaking 3D platformer where every element of the world comes together in perfect harmony, which I think is like the perfect way to summarize like exactly what this game is, because we're talking lush jungles, you got glowing caverns, you got collapsing temples, all brought to life with the gorgeous lighting and animation that is similar to what we got with Mario Odyssey. And that, for me, is making Donkey Kong Bananza become one of the best video games that we've gotten in the last 5 years? Hell, do I say 10 years? But anyway, there is obviously a lot of things I could talk about, the things I love about this game, like the Bananza modes. And you'll notice that was plural because, yes, there are multiple modes. You can go Bonanza Kong, you can go Bonanza Zebra, or you can go Bonanza Ostrich. And obviously, the first mode, you got Kong Bananza. This basically, when you trigger it, DK bulks up and he becomes even bigger. He becomes even stronger and more intense. Everything he grounds and pounds, it creates shockwaves, and he basically becomes like an unstoppable force for the length of that little upgrade period that you got. And then you got Zebra Bonanza, where Donkey Kong sprouts like zebra stripes, and then of course he gets increased speed and increased agility. At times, it feels like it's double the speed, and then his jumps become higher and they become longer, which obviously comes in handy as you play throughout the game. And then we have Ostrich Bonanza. And you'd think like Kong, this giant ape, turning into an ostrich would be lame, and it would like feel like a downgrade, but it's not. I mean, it's arguably one of the most fun modes in the game because DK grows feathers, his legs begin to stretch out, and then you get wings. So you're like gliding across the gaps, and you can even bounce off of enemies mid-air, and you can take your eggs, which for some reason they're explosive. When you mix an ape and an ostrich together, you get explosive eggs, which, hey, we all learned something this week. But in short, the Bonanza modes, along with the destructible environments, are really what stands out, because these aren't just gimmicks, right? They're creative power-ups to really enhance the platformer, and they give you another reason just to replay levels, to unlock hidden secrets that you find in Bonanza, because it's like once you beat the game, go back in, play. Maybe you can only get to this one area with your ostrich skill, or this area is the only way you can get to it with the zebra skill. But this game is great. Everything that I'm reading, everything that I'm seeing, I think this is a great option for people to pick up. And one of the questions I've seen surrounding this game is like, is Donkey Kong Bonanza a good enough reason to go buy the Nintendo Switch 2? Like, if I've been holding off on buying the Switch 2, is this the game that I should go do it? And in my opinion, absolutely. If you already own the Switch 2, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Go pick this game up, play it immediately. But when you actually look at this game, the fully destructible environments, it really shows off what the Nintendo Switch 2 not only can do, but wants to do, right? These first-party games on new hardware are trying to set the tone for what the future of this generation will be. And I think between the visuals, the sound, and obviously the frantic pace, this shows this was designed specifically for the Nintendo Switch 2, and I love it, man. I think this sells the console 100%. There was a photo earlier this week that came online. Nintendo shared like what Donkey Kong Bonanza looked like on the Switch 1 when they were developing it versus what it looked like on the Switch 2. And it's what we all expected, right? Switch 2 is more lush. It's more filled out as far as the levels go, whereas the Switch 1 just kind of feels a little muted, and it doesn't feel like a present-day game. So, again, if you felt like previous generation games were lacking and you're looking at this and you're like, man, this is just going to be kind of what we've come to expect from Nintendo, I really do think that this is the first game that you have an upgrade where it's like, no, this is what next-gen Nintendo is supposed to be. Which obviously leads us into the conversation of Game of the Year. Does Donkey Kong Bonanza deserve to be in the Game of the Year conversation? Short answer to that, yes. Long answer to that, absolutely. I mean, we are talking a 10 out of 10 platformer from Nintendo. A platformer that could potentially redefine the genre as for what a platformer at Nintendo should be. I mean, you've got the combination of nostalgia behind this. You got innovative mechanics, and of course the sheer polish that makes a game like this stand out in a very crowded year. Because let's not forget, this year's Game of the Year lineup is like Clair Obscur Expedition 33. We got Split Fiction, Death Stranding 2, potentially Ghost of Yotei, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and now Donkey Kong Bonanza. That is a Game of the Year lineup that is filled with absolute killers. And if you take the Jeff Keighley and Hideo Kojima friendship completely out of it, I think Bonanza does have a really good chance to upset a lot of critics this year and bring home Game of the Year for Nintendo. But yeah, I am a big fan of this game. Donkey Kong Bananza isn't just another platformer. It's a joyful, chaotic, beautifully designed experience that already is one of my favorite games of this year. So whether you're here for the smashing, the boss fights, or the countless bananas, or just the pure Nintendo magic behind this game, definitely know that it is there. And let me know in the comment section what your favorite part of this game is, if you picked it up, or whether or not this is going to sell you on buying the Nintendo Switch 2, or you're waiting for another game. But anyway, to close this out, shout out to Nintendo. Donkey Kong Bonanza is this week's Game of the Week, and it's obviously available exclusively for the Nintendo Switch 2. And moving on from the world of Nintendo, we are diving straight into the world of YouTube gaming, as a YouTube gaming creator is facing jail time over previous videos reviewing ROM hardware. And, here on this show, we try to celebrate the world of gaming. We try to talk about gaming news in a positive format, but sometimes there's news, sometimes there's stories that remind us just how weird the world of gaming can be. And apparently, international copyright law can be very weird. In case you didn't pick it up in the intro, a YouTuber by the name of Once Were Nerd is facing potential jail time. You might be wondering, what the heck did he do? Well, he reviewed and potentially promoted third-party gaming handhelds. Yes, and obviously, you heard that correctly. I'm not spinning that in any way. He didn't hack the handhelds. He didn't sell the handhelds. He just took a handheld off the internet, opened the package, got in front of a camera like what I'm doing right now, and reviewed it. And now, facing jail time because the government doesn't have anything better to do. But before we go any further, let's get a little background here. Once Were Nerd is a content creator. They're fairly niche. They focus on reviewing portable gaming devices. Things like emulator handhelds, retro consoles, and of course those gray area systems where I know you've seen them. They're on AliExpress. They come preloaded with like 5,000 games and a bunch of malware. And a lot of the games you've never heard of, but there's usually like a Final Fantasy on there, and you're like, oh, I love that game as a child. I'm going to buy that emulator just to play that, and hopefully they don't steal my credit card information. And as far as Once Were Nerd goes, I mean, their videos are like, let's make videos on testing the build quality, see if the games actually work, and they pick up the devices and tell you whether or not that they're worth buying. I mean, quite frankly, that's like journalism. This consumer advice, stuff that most of us find incredibly helpful, but apparently, in the eyes of the Italian government, not everyone agrees. And here's where things get dicey. In some countries, these handhelds are technically illegal in certain areas because they are preloaded with ROMs and copyrighted games. So the area is very gray as far as like the legality behind these devices. And in some jurisdictions, just promoting or even recommending these products can fall under facilitating piracy. Basically, in the eyes of the Italian government, by showing or endorsing these devices in his videos, Once Were Nerd allegedly violated intellectual property laws and now is being investigated and even threatened with prosecution and jail time over all of that. And authorities are claiming that his videos encourage the distribution of pirated software, even though he hasn't actually uploaded or sold any games himself. This is basically the Italian government saying, you reviewed a DVD player, now you're responsible for all the bootleg DVDs out there, which is just absurd. And this kind of piqued my interest for this week for multiple reasons. One, I think it shows how uneven and outdated piracy laws are around the world. It's not just the United States, it's everywhere. Second, it raises a very serious question. Like, when creators like myself, what are we allowed to talk about and what are we not allowed to talk about? Like a while back, I got contacted by a legal team who was upset by a video we talked about with like a emerging virtual reality technology. We basically were like, oh, check out this cool little feature. It does this, it does that. Here's the name of it. Turns out that company did not have the trademarks and did not have the copyright for that name. They got sued by the copyright or the trademark holder, and then that trademark holder hired a lawyer to reach out to me and was like, you need to take down all of your videos that are talking about that VR technology because they don't have the right, which the lawyers reached out, they demanded it, I got on the phone with them, I got a cease and desist email, we had the conversation, I took the videos down. Looking back, I still do think it's very funny because we are so small on YouTube, and the video that the lawyer was calling me about, I think had like maybe 500 views, and he was like, I need you to take this down. I wanted to be like, how much do you make? Like, you're having to call a YouTuber who has like does your copyright holder not have better things going on with their life? But I mean, the third reason that this concerns me is like this could set a very chilling precedent for anyone reviewing or discussing technology or even just gaming hardware. I mean, talking about devices like the Ambernick or the Go Retroid or any other device, you could potentially face jail time for doing that. What type of world do we live in? I mean, simply reviewing a product does not mean you're endorsing piracy. And if that is the case, what's next? Reviewing a PC is illegal because someone might download a torrent? Oh, you made a video about a blank USB drive. You were trying to promote copying software illegally. Oh, don't you post a review about that printer because with printers you can print copyrighted images and you'll be sued or thrown in jail. And I know Nintendo has nothing to do with this, but it does feel like with this week's news, and then you take the Nintendo FBI seizure of ROM websites, that it is a definite wild time for anyone that is concerned about game preservation. Like, it literally feels like the odds are against us. And at the end of the day, the bottom line is this. Gamers deserve honest reviews. Creators deserve freedom to be able to talk about hardware, even if that hardware exists in a legal gray area. And if the authorities really want to crack down on piracy, I mean, I don't know, maybe start with the guys actually selling the preloaded consoles, not the guy on the internet who's like, oh, you know what? After a couple days, the D-pad kind of sticks to the console, and of course, the screen resolution is obviously weak sauce, but overall, it's a really cool console. Like, a key part of reviews like this for me is like it prevents the public from buying devices that's potentially filled with malware, or even devices that just open your Wi-Fi up to any hacker in the world that wants to access it. Like, we're not allowed to talk about that anymore. I will obviously be paying very close attention to this story as it develops, and hopefully common sense begins to prevail, because nobody needs to go to jail for making a video over a Game Boy knockoff. But please, let me know in the comments, do you think that reviewing these devices should be protected under, like, fair use? Like, should you not be prosecuted? Or, I'm actually interested in the opposite. Like, do you think that crosses a line where the Italian government does have a case, and creators like myself should not be promoting these devices? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. The now confirmed love child of Microsoft and Asus, the Xbox Rogue Ally, has just had its pricing accidentally leaked online. And this isn't one of those leaks where it was like, oh, Walmart Canada did it or Best Buy did it. No, this leak actually came from Asus themselves. And I gotta admit, this is a lot more pricier than I thought it was going to be. So first, what are we talking about here? For those of you that haven't been paying attention, the Rogue Ally is Asus's window-based gaming handheld that came out last year. And it's basically a better Windows-flavored Steam Deck. It's extremely powerful, but it's also got a couple battery issues, so it's not like the perfect device in the entire world. And then a little later, Asus announced the Rogue Ally X, which fixed a lot of the issues from the original device. It's got a bigger battery, better cooling, more RAM, and obviously better ergonomics, things that gamers absolutely love. And then you fast forward to a couple weeks ago, and Microsoft entered the picture, because Microsoft and Asus announced a partnership where they would be releasing an Xbox branded version of the Rogue Allies, and it'll have Game Pass baked into it, Xbox UI tweaks, and the branding that just lets you know, yeah, you're playing with an Xbox controller and an Xbox handheld. Yeah, I'm an Xbox fan. Here's where things get spicy this week, because this week Asus accidentally published and then quickly deleted a support page listing both devices under their official Xbox branding. The Xbox Rogue Ally showed at a price of €699, which based off of conversion will be $812 US, and then the Xbox Rogue Ally X was €899, or about $1,000 US. Which, to answer the question on all of your mind, yes, you heard that correctly, $1,000. That is a crap ton of money. I mean, originally we had heard like a rumored $500 to $700 floating around for this device, but these actual prices, kind of bonkers. And now, before anybody faints at home, just know these prices aren't technically confirmed. The listings were quickly pulled, so they could have just been placeholders for the time being, or maybe it was just like an intern who was like, guys, I got an idea. Let's leak out a fake price, and then we'll find out if consumers are okay with it. If they're pissed, we lower the price. But if they're okay with it, we'll just leave it out there at that cost. The other thing to consider is like when you're looking at the USD conversion to euros, a lot of people expect Microsoft to subsidize the pricing here and maybe introduce like pricing parity across all markets. So we're seeing like $6.99 and $8.99 over in Europe. There's a good chance we might have the same price over here in America as well. But I don't know. Honestly, I feel a little silly here because $1,000 is not cheap, man. You know, a couple weeks ago when we had this announcement, I was like, if you had the choice between a Switch 2 or an Xbox Rogue Ally X, I'd pick the Xbox Rogue Ally X every single day. But now, it might be $1,000. Damn, I don't even know if that's going to hit my radar, right? $1,000 is a crap ton of money for anything. Like, if I got told by a mechanic that I need $1,000 of work, I'd feel like that'd be like a kidney punch. If Xbox is like, hey, we're going to need $1,000 for this handheld, I'm like, oh, okay, bud. Have fun with that. I hope all of you that enjoy it, enjoy the new Xbox Rogue Ally X. And if you've got one and I don't, just know that we're in completely different tax brackets. And I guess what has me like a little concerned here is like, are we entering an era of gaming where the next generation consoles, like the PlayStation 6 and the next Xbox, are those going to be $1,000 consoles? Like right now, $500 you can go buy a PlayStation 5. I feel like that's a good price for what you're getting there. But the next gen, what are we looking at? I mean, is it going to be pricing that's more similar to like a gaming PC? Again, I'm saying I'm biased here. I'd love to know your thoughts because would you be willing to pay $800 to $1,000 for these handhelds? Or again, I'm a little stuck with that. But again, I'm a little like struck by this pricing. I can't believe that that's how much it's going to be. Or you're like, I'm just going to stick to my Nintendo Switch. $500, I'll stick there. I'll be tethered to the couch as a console player. I don't need a handheld gaming PC. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if Asus updates anything, you can definitely expect we'll have more content here on this channel. And moving on from one overly priced gaming handheld to another, let's dive into the world of Nintendo as GameStop's Nintendo Switch 2 Staplegate has officially come to an end. Admittedly, this has been one of my favorite stories of 2025, and I love that we're finally getting some conclusion here. Because look, everybody's heard the cursed weapons of gaming. Everybody has that favorite weapon from their favorite game that belongs in the Hall of Fame. But now we have a humbled office tool that is joining the hallowed halls of gaming history. Because we're not just talking about any stapler. We're talking about the infamous GameStop Stapler of Doom. The stapler that when it walks into the room, all the Nintendo Switch 2s just move away. Not me, fam. I don't want to get stapled. Keep them away from me. Keep them away from me. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, is this the world's most famous stapler? Like, everyone talked about this. And it just happened right at the Nintendo Switch 2. But then I got to think, I was like, okay, what could be a bigger stapler, right? You got the stapler from The Office. Jim put Dwight's stapler in the Jell-O and it just kind of jiggled. I feel like everybody's seen that. The other one that would be of note would be like the stapler from The Office Space, where he's like, "That's you touch my stapler. You touch my..." That's the other one. I feel like if those are the contenders, the GameStop stapler is obviously a bigger stapler. But anyway, if you have no idea what we're talking about here, I apologize. Let's set the scene for you. A customer walked into GameStop ready to pick up their brand new shiny Nintendo Switch 2 on launch night. The customer obviously assumed that the Switch 2 was going to be fresh. It was going to be clean. It was going to be pristine, right out of the box, untouched, perfect. However, out of the shadows walked a GameStop employee who, in an attempt to attach the receipt to the Switch 2 box, filed a stapler right through the packaging that just went through the cardboard and pierced the screen of the Nintendo Switch 2, damaging this customer's Nintendo Switch 2 on, dare I say, the biggest night of his life. And a lot of us saw this story and were like, man, can't wait to see what GameStop does in response. And they did right. They took care of the customer. They sent a brand new Switch 2. They got him what they needed. But then, it got quiet. None of us really knew what was going on behind the scenes because we were like, well, they have the original Switch. They also have the stapler. What are they going to do? Well, apparently this week they took that stapler, paired it up with the exact same Nintendo Switch 2 that was damaged, threw it up on eBay, and sold it for charity. Yeah, the exact stapler that punctured that Nintendo Switch 2 on launch night was listed online. And GameStop CEO came out over on X and basically said, if this reaches 7 figures, I will personally deliver my pre-owned underwear, which is wild on multiple fronts. Because GameStop offering pre-owned underwear is not a vertical I thought we would see in 2025. Maybe 2026, but not right now. And obviously, because we're talking about the internet and the world of memery that we live in, the bidding on this stapler went through the roof, with it ultimately closing out at the price of $250,000, which, to GameStop's credit, they did confirm that this all of this money will go to the Children's Miracle Network hospitals. I guess where I land on this is we've all heard the phrase that all press is good press, and I think that this is just a textbook example, right? This is going to be an example that in business school or in marketing classes, they're going to say, like, here's how you take bad press and you turn it into good press. Because this could have easily been a massive issue for GameStop and Nintendo, but GameStop literally took this, they swapped out the problem, they took care of it for the customer, and then they somehow turned this massive blunder into $250,000 for a hospital. Like, it's incredible. And I do have to wonder, like, having seen this played out, how many other companies are going to try to emulate this? Like, how many social media managers are going in on Monday that are like, all right, first off, it might sound weird, but I need you to staple the Tesla. Don't worry, you're going to get yelled at, but we'll get a W at the end of the day. So anyway, shout out to GameStop. I think this was a great way to number one, close out the story of Staplegate and make sure nobody talks about it anymore. But obviously also make it end in a way that charity wins, gamers win, and obviously GameStop wins as well. So shout out to the company over there. And if you're in the market for used underwear, hey, Ryan Cohen, he's got some he's willing to give out. But anyway, that is it for this week's episode of the Nerf Report. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with me again, talking about the latest gaming news of the week. My name is Bryant. As always, I appreciate you spending the weekend with me, talking about all of this fun stuff. And until next time, my friends, stay cool, and we will see you in the next video.